Welcome to Pamper and Splurge, where we talk sustainability served sexy.
So let's be honest, who knows how much longer we're going to be living behind closed doors in isolation due to this global pandemic that's obviously driving us all bonkers. So why not convert our isolation pads into a tropical paradise? Today, I'm going to be speaking with Frankies Journey, also known as Frankie Flowers, and he, if you don't already know, is a media personality as well as expert gardener. So who better to ask and interview than Frankie Flowers himself regarding all things tropicals? Today, we're going to learn which tropical plants you should choose, where to place them in your home, why they're important, and most of all, how to care for them. No green thumb needed. Okay, we are live. Awesome. Okay, so thank you so much for spending your Saturday afternoon with us.
Thank you for having me too. And Bentley's spending it with us too. I got my little doggy Bentley here on my lap too.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. So I know, you're usually on TV right now, or you're gardening or working on like major projects. So what is it like living in isolation right now?
You know what? There's some good and some bad. I really I try to every day think about what this is giving me, not what it's taking away. And what it's given me is a lot more time to kind of slow down. And I've been grateful for that. So I've been actually spending more time with my kids, been taking more dog walks with my dog. I've been cooking a lot more, and I've been reflecting a lot. You can always be busy. And every day I set out goals for myself. So that way I have a schedule and I set those goals. And I think that's been really helpful. But it's really hard because I really am a people person as well. And so it's really hard because some of the connections, I was always somebody that would feel that going for coffee is a better connection than what we're doing right now. But overall, I think we needed to do it. I think the world needed to slow down a bit.
I definitely have to agree. And so what does your schedule look like right now? Are you doing virtual consultations on how to style gardens and all of that? Like what does your day-to-day look like?
So I'm doing a few. Actually, I have one scheduled tomorrow for a person that just outside of the city of Toronto that needs some help with the vegetable garden. So we have a virtual one that we're doing, a virtual meeting that we're doing there. I'm now broadcasting breakfast television in the mornings live from Bradford, my home community, out of my greenhouse, my family greenhouse, to minimize the risk of going to Toronto. We have a dedicated camera person that's with us, so we have a lot of safety protocols that are in place. I usually come home each day after that. And then I help my kids with homeschooling.
Oh boy. Yeah.
And then I live outside of the city, which I'm lucky. So I've been doing a lot of hikes just right around my area with my boys. My oldest son is really into nature photography, landscape photography. So
I've noticed that.
Yeah.
I've noticed on your Instagram. That's very nice. They're following your footsteps.
Yeah.
Yeah, so today, obviously I just thought you'd be the perfect person to interview about all things tropicals because we're living in isolation. Who knows how much longer we're going to be here? So why not convert our isolation pads into a tropical paradise? So this is basically the topic today. Do you have any tropical plants in your household?
Yeah, you know what? Tropical plants are always an incorporation in my household. The reason being is in the dead days winter, it actually gives me something to look forward to. There's air purification properties that come with that. Just to let everybody know that maybe you're like, well, I've already had a plant and I've killed a plant. Anybody that's ever had a plant will kill a plant too. So you got to find the right plants for you so that you don't kill them. I think that they are something that everybody needs. There has been studies and science shown that just seeing green will actually make you feel better and also make you think more clearer. There's even been studies for schools where actually kids that are facing a green space, looking out a window, there's been benefit. And I've been working with a lot of schools about putting plants into classrooms. And the reason why we do that is the kids feel good, but then the kids also have accountability, meaning that they have to come in, they have to water, they have to take care, and it's real life lessons. So I will tell you, before you get a dog, before you decide having kids, Get a plant.
Get a plant. Well, I've got way too many plants. I have, if I can take you around right now, I would. I have plants, like an abundance of tropical plants, pretty much in every room, especially the kitchen, because that's where a lot of the natural light comes through. But I've been fairly lucky in terms of not killing plants. Like I've revived certain plants that were like a definite no go. And so I've had a lot of luck. The only thing, however, is recently I've noticed, especially with the bird of paradise, is that it's now tilting on one side. And from what I understand, I'm supposed to have had every single time I water it, which is, once or twice a week, depending on how dry it looks, I'm supposed to tilt it a little, not tilt it, but just turn it every single time. Is that true?
So a plant will always naturally grow towards the light. So wherever the dominant sunlight is coming from, that plant will then say to itself, I gotta go there, I gotta go there. Yeah. So by rotating that plant, it's gonna have more even growth. Because if that plant was in a greenhouse, it would actually have even light right around. But because it's not in a greenhouse, that's why you wanna do those slight rotations. You don't necessarily have to do it every time you water, but even every other week is really helpful. And then that will just balance that plant out. You can start to do that now. So if it's leaning to one side, just spin it to the other, and all of a sudden you'll start to see it go. It's like a sunflower. That's what's the most amazing thing about a sunflower. Sunflowers in the morning face the east, and then by the end of the day, they're facing the west.
Because interesting.
Following the light. Yeah, they spin their heads during the day, a sunflower.
Very interesting. Okay, that's good to know. I don't have any sunflowers yet, but I will consider that. Yeah, so what I wanted to ask is, so I was on the hunt because now that we're conducting so many video conferencing, different interviews, things like that, we're communicating as we are right now, right, through video. So I wanted to make sure that, because I work in sustainability and it's all about making sustainability sexy, I wanted to ensure that I've got sexy plants behind me just to kind of, brand myself a little further. And so I was hunting for a nursery that is actually open and doing curbside deliveries as well as pickups. And it was really difficult to find someone in my area. So I came across a nursery called Angus Farm and Nursery, and I had no idea they even existed. They actually have like little chicks and ducks and a pond and like water elements, and it's apparently so beautiful. The only reason they still exist, from what I understand, is that they haven't sold their property to a huge builder like most, because of the fact that they're so close to water and it's just not a good building zone. Anyways, all to say is that I was able to choose certain plants, and now I have them in my backdrop. You can't really see them too much. So we'll go over the ones that I chose, and I'd like to know from you, because seriously, ever since they delivered them, they're kind of not doing as well. Like I've noticed the alocasia, which is the elephant ear plant, is kind of not looking as beautiful on the surface of its leaves anymore compared to when I got it just a few days ago. So I'm kind of wondering, what am I doing wrong?
So the first thing is that you're not necessarily doing anything wrong. Whenever a plant goes to a new home, it needs to adjust itself to that light. So it could be in a high light location or a brighter light location, comes into your home, and then that plant wants to figure out this new area. It's kind of like, even when you go to a new school, remember high school, that first day in grade 9?
Don't remind me.
So over time though, you got comfortable, you started wearing nicer clothes, you started feeling better, and that's what's going to happen with the plant. The number one killer of plants indoors, and often people think it's not doing well, so let's give it water, let's give it water, let's give it water. Don't do that. You want to allow it to dry out, especially that alocasia, which is the elephant ear. You want it to allow it to dry out in between waterings. That guy there likes to be in a bright room, so it should be in west or south facing room. That's going to get the bulk of the light during the daylight hours. So that's really key. But it's probably just adjusting itself. Let's say that you bought a hibiscus, and you brought hibiscus inside. Often what you'll find with a hibiscus, it'll drop all its leaves when you bring it in for the first little bit, and then all of a sudden it adjusts, puts its leaves back on, and it's kicking right back again.
Really?
So it's just like
interesting.
It was like me in grade 9. I was all in pieces those first few days.
Oh no. Okay. Well, so what I did is I was looking for, there were so many plants that I was looking at online, because I was always trying to find which ones are original, different, so on and so forth. So far, my absolute favorites are the alocasia, and I feel like I'm not pronouncing it properly because you pronounce it differently.
There's 2 different ways that you can say it, but just elephant ears is the easiest way to say it.
Elephant ear. Okay, perfect. Which it does resemble that, and I think it's just such a magical plant. I just find it so beautiful. I can't wait to see, like, watch it grow if it gets to that point, because I almost didn't survive grade 9. So let's not even talk about school right now.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to go over some of the plants that I had selected. So there's this one, which is what is it called? Calathea. Have you ever had this plant?
Yeah, it's actually, so I do the interior design work for Yorkdale Mall, for Yorkdale Shopping
Yes.
Center. I do some others for Oxford property, and we make sure that number one, I'm going to tell you that Yorkdale and Oxford, sustainability is the number one thing that we have to make sure that we're meeting as a criteria. So we're
Okay.
having to make sure that we're sourcing locally grown and or maintained plants, and that they are going to be low impact. So in that variety, we've used that guy many times. What's beautiful, if you look at the foliage on that foliage has that white with green with a little bit of pink. So it's a really nice plant. Overall, that one there's a little bit of a lower light. So don't put that directly in front of a window, just away from a window.
Uh,
Easy to care for, but what's really great is it's fun with foliage. That foliage on that plant gives you color without the flowers. So that's fantastic.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because the reason why I wanted to show it really quickly is that what I love the most is that underneath it sort of has a purple color, which is very, very neat. It's just like the beautiful, beautiful contrast.
Yeah, and
I love
sometimes what you
that.
can do is, so when I'm doing some interior design with that, and that would be a purple to pink color with the variegation that you see. So what I can do is underneath there is I can put caladiums and not caladiums, some caladiums, but as well, also let's say that I could use some calanchulos. That's what I'm thinking, calanchulos.
Or
Um,
like, I don't know what you mean.
so calanchulos is a flowering, almost like succulent plant that flowers for a long duration of time. That comes in a bright, almost pink to purple. So what I can do is I can underplant with the flowers. So I'm using that same color and I'm transitioning it in. So almost in a container. So I can use
Oh,
plants to really create almost like a monochromatic kind of theme. Um,
yeah.
it really creates a lot of beauty. And then we do density, meaning different types of leaf forms, really
Yeah.
creates a great kind of different architectural statement. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So I've noticed the Monstera delicosia plant is actually very, how would I say? It's just, I feel like it's foolproof. You don't need a green thumb for the Monstera. It's like it's a monster. It just keeps growing. It's a plant
Yeah.
that never stops growing, which is quite interesting. And I've noticed because I have two. I have one here which is exposed to direct sunlight, and I have one downstairs near the kitchen, which is not. It's kind of like in a shady area, and it's thriving there too. So do you feel like that is a go-to tropical plant for most people?
It's one of the most popular plants right now on social media.
Okay.
It's actually one of the most trendy plants. It used to be the fiddle leaf fig,
True.
which was really very popular, but now it's the monstera. It is an easy plant that will really benefit you, but probably, and I think we're going to talk about Zamifolia, which is Zizi
Yes.
plant as well.
Yes, we are.
So if there's one plant that I would say is the go-to plant, it would
Yes.
be Zamifolia. So that
Yeah.
monstera is easy, but the
Mhm.
easiest is
Is
Zamifolia,
the
which is known as the ZZ plant, which
yeah.
in the 1980s there was a band called ZZ Top. Did
Okay.
you remember
I
that
don't
band?
remember. No.
There's a popular song called Sharp Dressed Man.
Okay.
That ZZ plant is a sharp dressed man, I'll call it. Architecturally, it looks like a great looking plant. It's pretty, really easy to take care of. And there's a new variety, which is probably one of the most sought after plants right now, which is called Zamifolia raven. Zamifolia raven is a black leaf ZZ plant. So it's a black foliage, really hard to
Oh,
get.
interesting.
It is one that a lot of people are loving. So on Instagram and on social media, you're really seeing the Zamifolia, but you're seeing Zamifolia raven is the one that's really kind of taking people's eyes.
Oh, interesting. I've never heard of it. I feel like there were so many, just like I told you, I was trying to research which plants exist and how to get a hold of them. I've noticed that you can buy some on Amazon, on eBay, I mean Etsy. You can get plants from everywhere. It's the strangest thing. And there are some that are very exotic that come from Australia or different places, and that I've never seen here. So it's interesting how certain nurseries will sort of cultivate their tropical assortment, but kind of have the typical plants and not really go above and beyond to ensure that they have a wider selection. So I have
Mhm.
noticed that. And that's why, so I selected a few, and now we'll go over, actually one more thing before we skip to the Zizi plant, to just go over that a little further. I wanted to go back to the Monstera because I was posting about it. I just like, again, I love the Monstera plant. And then someone immediately said, be careful because around your furry pets, not a good idea. It could be a toxic plant for them. So is that really the case? Can an animal die from just being exposed or chewing on one of the leaves?
Some plants, yes, yeah. So not really with the Monstera. It's not going to kill that furry friend. And this is only for furry friends that are really ones that are generally going to eat a plant. And most don't. But there are several plants that you have to watch out for, like Dieffenbachia, which is also known as dumb cane. That one there really can be a toxic plant. But you really have to know the plants that you have, and then know the. So if you have a curious pet that tends to get into plants and likes to eat plants, then you have to be hyper sensitive. If you go onto the SPCA, if you go on their website, but also if you go onto the American Humane Society website, they'll have a full listing of all those plants that you have to be worried about.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so I'll definitely take note of that. And going back to the Zizi plant, which you touched on just a little, what I noticed, and I used to have one, I actually had to bring it to a nursery to terminate its life, because what happened was that it was such a beautiful, it was actually one of the saddest moments that I've experienced. Just seeing that, like bringing it to the nursery, thinking like there was hope for it. It was beautiful. Like the leaves didn't turn yellow. There was none of that. It's just there were like little flies, which I found out why. It's just the pot that I had at the time was way too small, so the roots were kind of like protruding, and there was no more soil. So when they actually opened it up, they almost had to crack the pot open, and they extracted the Zizi plant from the pot, and they were just like, the amount of roots, like it kind of looked like, you know, ramen noodles when you get them out of the pack. That's what it looked like. And the guy just looked at me and he was like, as if I've been mistreating this plant for years. Like he gave me this look on his face. Anyways, all to say is that I think what I've noticed is that when you get a Zizi plant, which is what I have right now, it has so many different shoots going out, which looks beautiful. But I've noticed that compared to my last one, the leaves are actually not very wide or thick. Like they're kind of flat. So is that just a variety of Zizi plant, or are they going to get that way in time?
No, it should be. It could be a different cultivar and/or variety. Zizi plants should every 3 years be popped into a new pot. They can be fairly pot tight. Don't call it that you killed the plant. You just put it back to that big compost pile in the sky. That's what we call it.
Yes, I like that.
And then the roots. Sometimes what happens is with the roots, what you have to be careful about is the roots will grow circular. So like this in the container, and then if you don't repot it, actually the roots will grow so tight that they start to choke the plant out.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. Yeah. So so I killed it. I basically killed it. There's no way. I mean, you paint it lightly.
Let's just build your confidence here.
I'm still very hurt by that experience. It felt so bad.
There's a beginning, a middle, and end.
Yes. Agreed.
That plant in the beginning and the middle, it's just the end that you have a problem with.
Yes, okay, that's good to know. So we did touch on the bird of paradise earlier, and I want to bring that conversation back because that is one of my favorite plants. They do grow very tall. So when I got my first plant, it was, I think, maybe 5 feet high, and now it's 11 feet high. So, if I didn't have a home with a high ceiling, I'd be in serious trouble. So what are your thoughts about a bird of paradise for someone that's looking to sort of like a starter plant that wants to bring the tropical vibe into their homes?
I'll tell you a story before, but with Bird of Paradise. So RH, Restoration Hardware, that opened here in Toronto, their flagship.
I love that place.
Yeah, so I was involved in the interior plant design for that. So we had to source Bird of Paradise for them that were 18 feet in height. We had to get some, and that's kind of the trademark of RH is the Bird of Paradise. They're very much into the Bird of Paradise, and it is a great plant, but I've seen them, 22 feet. They get big over time. Are they a good starter plant? Yeah, they are. They gives you a flower. Often it's a little bit tricky to get it to go into bloom. But is it the best starter plant? I would more so go towards peace lily, which is speckled. Oh, yes. Peace lily is a fantastic indoor tropical plant that's not as big of a grower with a large leaf, a white flower, and really has more air purification properties than what a bird of paradise does. And there are several different varieties of bird of paradise as well. There's a really good friend of mine, Jill Jensen, she is the bird of paradise guru. Travels the world looking at bird of paradise, yeah.
So how do we get a bird of paradise to flower?
To flower, so a lot of the times what we want to do is we want to have to stress the plant. So if you want to think like a plant, why do plants flower? And the reason why most plants will flower is to set seed. And the reason why they're trying to set seed is to reproduce. In life, everything goes back to reproduction. Just either eat or reproduce.
Sustainability.
That's nature in its way. So generally when a plant is stressed, meaning that the water's cut back and we actually give it a little bit of toughness, what the plant will do is trigger itself that I'm under threat and that I need to reproduce. I need to make sure that I'm going to last for several years to come, or my kind is going to last. So by reducing the water, allowing it to dry out, and just basically not fertilizing for a period of time, will trigger it to actually put its buds in place, and then we'll start to increase watering, put a little bit of fertilizer, and boom, you'll get the bloom. So often what it is about treating that plant badly for it to bloom. Don't do that in your relationships.
That's great advice. Advice. That's really interesting. I had no idea that was the reason why plants flower. Very, 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 very interesting. Okay. And so what happens like in terms of putting certain plants in a planter? Because I'm a huge fan of just creating a little bit of an assortment. And sometimes what happens is that when you put certain plants together, they just it's like putting a few fish in a tank and just in an aquarium and just hoping that they'll all get along. I have noticed that some, I guess, need more nutrients than others, because I feel like even in the plant world, it's all about survival and procreation, like you said. So I feel like they're kind of in competition with one another. So how do we create a very sane and collaborative environment for these tropical plants in a planter?
Yeah, we often say which ones are going to play in the sandbox nicely. That's kind of in this world.
There you
so,
go.
So when we're designing containers, even for annuals for your outdoors, we always look at, hey, which ones are going to play in the sandbox well? And often what you have to do is make sure that, number one, they're all meeting the same light requirements. So the plants you're selecting are all going to be suited for the light that you have. So if we were to pick some plants that were going to be all highlight and really you have a low light, you're going to be in a failure position. But sometimes we can design the container so that the center point could be the highlight plant, that taller one. And then what I call them the thriller, the filler, and then the spiller. Yeah, so the thriller is your height. So that's your drama. So that tall one, what we can do is the filler around it, we can make sure that they're a lower light, and then the spillers around that are a lower light. So it's really key. But the main thing is we want to make sure the plants we're selecting are not invasive, because there are some plants that are just so vigorous and so strong and so the bully that over time they'll take over. Tropical plants, most of the times they're going to do better in their own pot and then put together as a collection. So in a corner, you're putting them all together as a nice little collection, and plants will do better when there's other plants around. It's actually been shown that they'll do better, and because there's humidity around them too at that time. And
it also looks better for our video backdrops.
Yeah,
we can just combine them all. The only thing is finding the right pots. I personally find it very difficult to find gorgeous looking pots. And it's also very expensive. So if you want to get gorgeous pots, then you're spending like $150 for a pot, depending on the size. And then if you have a collection of tropical plants like I do right now, then I'm going to need about 5 new pots. That's very expensive. So what's your suggestion for that actually? Do you have anything? We're going to talk about that.
There are some fantastic pots that you can get for a fairly reasonable price. Often it depends on where you're shopping, and it depends whether you want a glazed pot. And then you can kind of, they are an investment. We got to think about that pot. That pot will last for plants to come. And it depends on really what your budget is, but that pot could be with you for not only decades, but actually can go down to other family members. And if we then take that $100 pot and we put it over 10 years, it's not really that expensive at that point.
No,
but we can find pots for a good price. Online is a little bit difficult because pots that are really a glazed pot are fairly heavy. So what happens is the shipping cost, the size of that plant. Yeah, so you're better off to purchase. There are some great nurseries. I'll give you a little shout out to my 2 family nurseries when we get up and rolling again. Bradford Greenhouse's Garden Gallery, one in Barrie, one in Bradford. Our one in Barrie, I will guarantee you, it's over 10 acres, the store itself. And we have a lot of pot there. It's not that other pot that was legalized.
The other one. So another question, since we're on the topic of pots, is when we buy a tropical plant and we bring it home, do we just take that plant and drop it into a pot, or should we be adding a layer underneath it? Like, should we cut into that plastic encasing it came with? Like, should we get rid of that and then pot it? Like, what's the strategy behind that?
First thing is that we got to make sure the pot we're putting it in has drainage. So if it doesn't have drainage and it's just sealed in the bottom, then what we have to do is create drainage in the base of that pot. We're going to create drainage by either putting in some stone, or you could even use some packaging, like that kind of like the corn flakes that you get when you get an Amazon package that's in there, that styrofoam stuff. We can reuse that. The reason for that is that we want a plant to be able to sit out of water. If it sits in water too long, that's the biggest issue. So drainage, first thing. Second thing is, yes, we're going to cut that grower pot off. That black pot is called the grower pot. You don't necessarily need to cut it off. Depends on the plant. Sometimes it'll just slide off nicely. Then we're going to put a potting soil. And the potting soil that we need to make sure is one that's light enough that's going to dry out. And then we're going to just kind of firmly plant that plant, make sure the same soil height is there that it was in the pot. And then we're going to water. And if we really want to make sure that it's going to be in good shape, we use a transplant fertilizer, which is called Quick Start, which will reduce the amount of shock that it can go. But I would recommend for most plants to take them out of the grower pot. But if you don't have drainage, it's good. Have you ever sat in a tub for 24 hours?
No, but I sit in there for quite some time and my skin doesn't look too good afterwards. Yes.
The plant's roots would not look good either.
Interesting. Yeah, because I have noticed that like even with the Calathea, which I showed you before, I've noticed that like I haven't transferred them into a pot just yet because as I had mentioned to you, I haven't found, the perfect pot. But all to say is like I'm noticing that it's getting very, very dry. And very quick, gets dry very quick. So I keep adding a little bit more water, and obviously this is not necessarily the right move because now I'm noticing the ends of the leaves are kind of turning, it's almost like they're burning. So
that's a tip burn, and that tip burn can be definitely from a water issue. The other part too is a reminder is that if you dry out a plant and you dry it out completely, you'll notice that when you go to water, the water kind of rushes through really quickly.
Yes.
The potting soil is like a sponge. So if it's really dry, that sponge won't accept the water. So what you do is you water it and then wait about 10 to 15 minutes and come back and water it again. That'll open the soil up and it'll be able to absorb the water. So it could be that. It sounds like you're, you know what, I want you to take some pictures of that plant, take some pictures of the soil, and we'll give it a little bit of an analysis.
Oh, that's interesting. So you offer that service as well?
People can always email me at frankie@frankieflowers.com. And often I try to answer between 40 to 60 questions per day.
Wow, that's a full-time job.
Yeah, so I try to do that, and once I meet that, I cap it because you still got to do other things.
Yeah, of course. So I'm sure people are wondering, like, how did you know so much about plants, like so much about flowers and plants and landscaping, and you just have so much knowledge. So at what point in your life did you realize that you wanted to work in that industry? Like, what was the aha moment and when?
Child labor, yeah. So my family are greenhouse growers. My grandfather and my father have a really interesting story. My nonno, they went from Italy to England. In England, they worked as farmers and laborers in a greenhouse, and then came to Canada, and in Canada saved some money and built their business that my father and his 3 brothers and sister are still owners at this time. My summers, my March breaks were always spent either on our farm that we had or at the greenhouse. And probably my biggest learning was when I was a younger individual, and people would come into the garden center with plant problems. And there was this big book which was called The Problem Solver. And what I would do is they would come in with their leaves or whatnot, and we'd go to the book, and I would just go through the pages, and we try to find the solution. And I just took that time, and once you do it more and more and more and more, it's really that 10,000 hours. So And then I really realized that I was passionate about it. There was a period of time I thought I wanted to be a lawyer.
Oh, wow.
So I was en route to go to law school. And then at that time I took a break because my family built another store, the one in Barrie. And then I just was like, you know what? I love plants. I really do. And now it's my mission and goal to get people to plant, to touch, and just to garden. I actually indoor gardening, I call gardening, and people think of outdoor, but it's indoors and outdoors, that interaction, because I think it'll make people happier. And I'm fighting pretty strong in Ontario right now during COVID to try to get public parks somewhat opened in a way that's safe, to try to get community gardens back online, and as well try to get some garden centers opened as well. So I've been the MPPs, been talking with the Minister of Agriculture, and Premier Ford as well. So we're trying to make it happen.
I personally think it's essential for our health and wellness, right? It's an obvious one. Why wouldn't they allow this to be open to the public?
Yeah, and just also people need to interact in an outdoor space.
Yeah.
So if it's not a garden, we got to make sure people have access to the outdoors. But at the same time, safety is number one. So safety first.
Yes.
But this is a health issue. COVID is a health issue, and mental health is something that we got to pay attention to.
Absolutely. We have to cultivate it. So how do people get in touch with you?
So you can go to frankieflowers.com is my website, and you can see there's links, or you can go to frankieflowers.com, on Instagram at Frank Ferragini, as well as on Twitter. I'm always there. And Monday through Friday, you can see me on Breakfast Television, also on City Line. And yeah, I'm around. I'm around. Yeah.
You are. You're in isolation. This is proof. And this is proof that I'm in isolation too. So we're practicing physical distancing right now.
What I was doing. There's with me the whole time.
So
just sleeping on.
That's the best companion. All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Enjoy your weekend, and we will talk soon.
Okay. Take care. Okay. Everybody, health and happiness.
You too.
Bye.
And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you love this week's podcast, please share it with your network. Got a topic you'd like us to debunk? Or perhaps you've got a product or a service we should spotlight? Drop us a line at hello@pamperandsplurge.com. Bye for now.